Alright, hello guys, welcome back to another podcast. Today, I am going to pick the expansion draft basically. If I was the GM, these are the people I'm picking, and then I make my starting lineup. My starting lineup, I'm just going to warn you right now, it's like $1 million over the cap, and I'm pretty sure I screwed up my math somewhere, a little bit behind, but basically one of my guys' contract, he's getting paid like $8 million a year, should be getting paid like 4, so yeah, that's why my lineup's like this. I've researched for hours, and I've got like 4 hours till the expansion draft. I'm going to start out with telling you who I picked from each team, going by divisions, starting with the Atlantic. For Boston, I picked David Krejci. He wasn't a protected player. Obviously, none of the people I are were protected. He's a solid, center. He could crack the starting lineup. The contracts. It's a little hefty, 7 mil, 250,000, but like you can go around that, There's gonna be players on a new team that are, they're gonna get paid more than they should. I don't know if that's more than they should. He's good enough to deserve it. Some players on here may be better and deserve more, but there's a salary cap. As Tampa knows, we love the salary cap. Just kidding, we cheated. Not really. For Buffalo, I picked Kyle Okposo. Originally, I had Cody Eakin, but I have so many centers that I had to switch it up and go for some wingers. He's, I think the next best choice. Solid, but he's definitely a bottom 6 forward for me. So, starting lineup, will he crack it? I don't know. We'll find out here in a few minutes. For Detroit, I have Mr. Darren Helm. Not an amazing player. Detroit's just one of those teams. They've only got a few good guys, and they protected him. So it was tough to pick a player from Detroit. There was a few options, but all around from Detroit, I wouldn't expect someone to crack the Seattle starting lineup. So. It's fine in the expansion draft when your team's not amazing. Tampa's going to lose either Palat, Killorn, Gord, Johnson, Joseph. They're so good. And one of the websites I went to already it found out who that Seattle was picking. I didn't trust it, so I didn't really follow it. But they picked Gord. I don't follow that, for Tampa, but I guess I kind of did. You'll find out in a minute. For Florida, I have Chris Drager, the goaltender. Probably going to be their starting goalie. He's a solid tendy. He's not overly old, I don't think. His contract, too, it showed $0, which means I don't think he's getting paid at the moment. So I don't know. That probably is where my math screwed up. But, yeah, I have him. He's good. Couldn't beat Tampa, though. For Montreal, Gustafsson, defenseman. By the way, in the expansion draft, you need to select a minimum of 14 forwards, 93 goalies. I squeaked it out with 90. I have exactly 90, so I was a little tight, which means my defense isn't overly amazing, but it's an expansion draft, and you can only get what you take. Yeah, he's solid on the blue line. Montreal, he did good there. Stanley Cup final appearance. So he's got a little bit of experience behind him. And I think that, Seattle, they need, some older guys. And I think that Gustafsson, I think he could be one of those, older guys kind of leading the locker room, like that stuff. For Ottawa, we have Chris Tierney, solid player. Good shot, good speed. Ottawa, again, they didn't have many choices, but Tierney was one of them, and he was, I think, the best one to get picked from, another center, too, so, yeah, I've already mentioned 2 centers. Well, actually, more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4 centers now, and it's about to be 5, because for Tampa, I have Yanni Gord. You already know if any of the Tampa players selected will most likely be in the starting lineup, because it's going to be Palat, Killorn, Johnson, Gord, Joseph. Those 5 are easily starting lineup material. It sucks for me, but, it's going to solve. There's 2 ways Seattle's going to go. They're going to go for a good, talented player from Tampa. i.e. Palat, Killorn, and Gord. That's going to help Tampa's salary problem, which, I mean, Tampa might want them to go for Gord. That'll help clear up, cap space. But if Seattle wanted to kind of, go on the other side of things and, make Tampa's cap problem still a thing, then they would go for Johnson or Joseph. They get still a pretty good player, but they make Tampa still have to get rid of more guys, and then they could go for a trade with Tampa to also help clear their cap. So they get 2 Tampa players that are, solid, instead of just getting one big one. So they've got 2 routes to take. I'm going to assume they take this route. You have to have a few good guys, and Gord's pretty good. For Toronto, we have Jared McCann, solid guy, left winger. I have him at left wing. Some of my positions I missed around a little bit. Other people have him at center. I've got him at left wing. I think he can, be a good part of an offense. Seattle's offense, I think, is going to be what carries the team. I don't think they're going to be a defensive team. I think they're just going to go heavy on the offense. Next up, Carolina, I have a defenseman, Jake Bean. Watching him play against Lightning in round 2 of the playoffs this year, he was a good player. He wasn't a Hamilton Slavin player, but he was definitely a player that should be in the lineup. He can lock down, those top lines. We saw him, do that a little bit with Point. Point was hot, and, Bean kind of played the defense on him. So I think he's a little underrated, too. So Seattle, I think, will take him, put him on D, starting lineup. Columbus, I have Max Domi. Again, a pretty solid guy. Definitely could and should crack a lineup. We saw him, from Montreal to Columbus, in that trade for Josh Anderson, and Anderson turned out for Montreal. You guys know. It's your judgment if it was good or bad. I don't think it was very good. But Domi kind of slowed down in Columbus, but definitely getting back up. So, Columbus, Domi, Seattle. For New Jersey, I have Will Butcher. Again, another guy that I think is underrated, He should, I think, be higher. He's a guy that, he's one of the better New Jersey players, plays D. He's really good at locking down, in the slot. And I think that's something for, Seattle, having a less, defensive team. You got to have at least something, and, I think Butcher's possibly that guy. For the Islanders, I chose Jordan Eberle. One of the middle guys, he's not your top guy. He's definitely not your bottom guy. He's right there in the middle of the pack, He's one of those, not borderline, but borderline players from the lineup. You can only get 12 forwards on a team, and, he might be that bottom 6, He can score, he can definitely do things, but, he's getting older. I'm not saying his contract's getting heavier, but he's getting paid $5.5 million, and that's, a Seattle team that's, they're going to deal with cap. It's either get a good team, deal with cap, or just, go for a worse team, but, have good cap. I'm going good team, cap problems, but my cap problems aren't very high, with all that. I'll just tell you right now, my total cap rounded up 83 mil, and the cap is 81.5. So you could very easily just, change one guy, change a center, I'll get to the center here in a minute that I think could easily be traded out, or his contracts, could be worse. For the Rangers, I have Gauthier, I don't know how to say it, he's not in the lineup, who cares? For Philadelphia, James Van Riemsdyk, very good player. Gets paid $7 million, so a hefty amount, but he's good enough to deserve it. He is going to be that top left wing spot, He's going to be that guy. Power play time, potentially, is good in Philly, and I think Seattle will take him, and he'll be good in Seattle. Seattle, I think, is only going to take, 3 or 4 big guys. I think this is one of the big names that they'll take a shot on. For Pittsburgh, I have Chris Tanev. He's a defenseman, and he could be that 7th defenseman role. He could be higher, he could be lower, It's going to depend on, how bad the other guys do in the starting 6D. And it depends if Seattle's going to go with, the 11 forward, 7D mentality, like we've seen, Tampa do a couple times. Florida did it a lot. It's kind of all coaching to see if he'll play. I'll get to him later if he will or won't. And the last team in the Eastern Conference, I have Washington's Brendan Dillon, also on defense. This was tough for me because from Washington, I wanted to pick a forward. I wanted to pick Nick Dowd, not Ovi, but Nick Dowd, maybe Hathaway. But then, you look at, you need 9D. And you go to all the teams and it's like, well, they got good D, but there's a better forward option. This is one where I think this is a better D option. Washington's got such good offense right now that, taking away a forward, I don't know if that'll hurt them. Kind of like Tampa, they're losing a good player, but I don't think it'll hurt them very much. Gord's obviously a good player and part of their success, but you still got Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, Plot, Korn. They're loaded. And then Hedman on D, I think that they're going to go defensively with Washington and go with Brendan Dillon. Moving over to Arizona, we've got our boy. Never heard of him, but I take that back. I have heard of him. And all I've heard is positivity. Arizona's exposed players list, it wasn't very high. There wasn't a lot of options. But I went with Pitlick. He's a good player from all the things I've seen. Apparently he's, a top 9 player on the offense. I don't know. That's just the research I did. Arizona's depth for the exposed players was not very good. So they only had 2 people that you could probably choose from confidently. But I went with Pitlick. For Chicago, Nikita Zadorov, the big man on D. Zadorov is he's fast for a defenseman. He is huge. He can shoot. He is arguably going to be one of the better defensemen on the team for Seattle. I think they'll go for him, take a chance. He's good. I would take him for sure. Chicago, they had a good amount of players to choose from. This, I think, was just a better option. If you need defense, look at Chicago. They've had good history of defense. For Colorado, I have Jonas Donskoy. Very good player. Very talented right winger. You can 100% put him in the lineup and think we're going to win. He could be on the power play. PK possibly. I don't know the coaching style, but he could fit in that PK role. All around, I think he's just a really good player. And right wingers, they're hard to come by. I only had 2 right wingers after my original draft. I didn't do the cap. I just drafted players from every team. I had 2 right wingers. This was one of them. He's noticeable on the ice too. So good talent there. For Dallas, I have Ben Bishop, another goalie, 2 of minimum 3. But I think that they'll go for Bishop. Bishop's, not overly consistent. He's good enough to where I think he could be a backup or a starter. We've seen him in Dallas. He's been both. In Tampa, he was the starter over Vasilevsky, as he was also young, though. So, for me, it's more of a preference because you've got Dreiger, Bishop, and my next team, Minnesota, I have Kakinen, who's also goalie. And then you look at those 3 and you think, which of the 3 is the best and which is second best? I think Dreiger would be the best, and then Bishop second. Kakinen, he can definitely be one of those guys, but you could also, flip a trade. Some of these players could be tradable. I think they might take him, try to flip him to, San Jose. I know they just got Aiden Hill, but they could use some guys in that. I think you could try to work something with San Jose for a goalie, maybe. Because San Jose, they need it, and I don't think Hill will be enough. For Nashville, this is the dude whose contract absolutely should not be this much. Ryan Johansson. A center, very, very, solid, possibly lineup. his contract's, he's getting paid $8 million a year, and I don't know. Like, my cap with my entire team, not the entire team, the top 20, the starting lineups, it's 83 million rounded up. It's 82,998, so basically 83. I think that Johansson should, if I think his contract should maybe be 5, that'll put you at 80 million. So, in the future, if they want to go for a lineup like this, lower some contracts. Johansson, I don't think he should be paid that much. He's good enough, but not good enough to get paid $8 million a year. Yanni Gourde's only getting 5.166. Like, that's Yanni Gourde's better than him. They play the same position, and Gourde's better than him. So, I don't know. Lengthy contract, too. For St. Louis, Mike Hoffman, underrated. Like, people hate on him. I know why, but he's good. Like, he's got a decent contract, $4 million a year. So that helps your salary, cap. But he's he's not your top guy, but he's not your bottom guy. He's not going to be that 25th forward. So for Winnipeg, last team in the Central, I've got them taking Appleton. No reason really at all. I just picked a player from them. They had a lot of people to choose from. Stastny, Perreault, but they play center, and I think he was probably the better one. And I think Seattle likes him, from what I've heard. So, I think they might go with him. For Anaheim, Adam Henrique, center, and he's good. He's won some cups. I like what he's doing for the Ducks right now, and I like what he could do for Seattle potentially in the future. Center, I told you, I've had a lot of center choices. I have 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 centers. 4 of them obviously make it, 4 don't. So, tough list. You guys are going to have to be the judge here. So, for Calgary, Mark Giordano, terrible plus-minus rating, but a good defenseman. He's one of your better defensemen, and he's, that leadership role. Captain of the Flames, potentially captain of the Kraken if they take him. He's an older guy, so he's got the leadership skills, and I think that, Seattle's going to need that. You can't just take younger guys, to help your salary cap and expect, an outcome. I took a lot of bigger name guys, too. I didn't take, random people that I've never heard of. Some of the guys I took, you just hear of, but they won't make the lineup. But they get paid a lot, and I think that the people that are in my lineup, good. People that are out of my lineup should be in lineups, but they won't. So, there's that. Just wanted to get that out of the way. For Edmonton, Oscar Klefbom, good defenseman. Pretty underrated, too, I think. He's pretty good offensively. He scores a decent amount for defensemen. But I think he gets, a little bit downed on. I think he's pretty good. He's good for Edmonton. Seattle, I think he'd be a good fit for Seattle. Again, like their D, it's a little weak, and I think he could be that, one of those bigger guys that'll help the D. For LA, Ole Mata. Again, you got to squeeze out 9 defensemen. LA didn't have a great options, so I just went with a defenseman, and Mata's one of those guys. Won something in Pittsburgh, some hardware. Possibly it can help Seattle. For San Jose, I have Dylan Gambrell, one of the better San Jose players, but I believe they went with the 4-4-1 protection strategy. They couldn't protect him, and I think he's a good center. He could be one of the call-up guys, too. He could also be flipped. I think he'll probably end up getting traded, potentially back to San Jose, because San Jose likes him, from what I've heard. So, last pick, the 4th goalie I have for Vancouver, Braden Holtby. I don't know what you can say. He's not amazing, but he's good. Vancouver had some options. I think this is the best. You got to work with what you have, and I think this is the right choice. I potentially think he could get traded out very quickly after the draft. There's some players that, could, I think. I think Kakin and Holtby, you only need 2 goalies, and they got Drager Bishop. Now I'm going to attempt this. So I go here. Alright, so here's my starting lineup. This right here. And then my extras down here. Don't mind highlighting. That's not what I'm doing. Yeah, no. So Van Riemsdyk at my first left wing spot. Gord also first line center. Donskoy that first line right wing. This will be a solid line. They've got the skills. I think they could work together and they could do some stuff. You've got a decent line right there. Second line, McCann, Krejci, Pitlick. I think that could work. Some pretty talented guys. Same with the third line, Domi, Tierney, Eberle. Some talented guys, some of them could be higher up, If Tierney plays well, switch him Krejci, Domi, McCann, and Eberle, Pitlick, This is a team where your spot won't be, there. Any of these guys could move up, any could move down. Gord could go down to the 4th. So I've got Hoffman, Johansson, Okposo. They're on that last line. I wouldn't say it's a junk line, but these guys aren't first line, second line status. Maybe in Buffalo, Okposo is. Yeah. D, Zadorov, Giordano, Gustafsson, Bean, Clefbaum, Butcher. I didn't pick their hands. I think Butcher and Giordano should be left defensemen. I didn't really mess with that. I just put them on the side. I think Zadorov, he's that big body, good offensive defenseman. He's almost like a headman to me. So I think he'll be a good spot there. Giordano, really, just solid defenseman. I think he can play offense. Zadorov, Giordano can play the defense. Do a staggered one-on-one staggered for the defense. Jake Bean, Gustafsson, however you say it. Defensive, pairing there, and then Clefbaum, Butcher. That's your offensive one. Butcher could go up, Clefbaum could go up. Gustafsson could go down. It's all, again, coach's preference. And then Drager, Bishop, and net. Here are your extras. I think Kakkinen, Holtby, Henrique, Appleton, Gambrell. I think they'll probably end up getting flipped. I think they'll probably end up getting traded. Seattle, they didn't give up a lot of picks. But, they could probably use some more. They're new, so. Again, this isn't what their team's going to be. Let's just be real. They're not going to take all of these, kind of older guys. There's not really a younger dude on here. So they'll probably end up going to pick, some names that you probably haven't heard of, but they're probably going to end up being solid. And then here's everyone's salary. So this is the offense, going left wing, center, right wing, second line. So yeah, that's everyone's salary. This is Drager, a big 0, and this is the total. All around, I think it's a solid team here from what I've done. Could get better. I think they can end up making the playoffs. I don't think they're going to go to Vegas stature and go to the finals, but hey, you never know. It's the NHL. That'll happen. I think Vegas' run was a little bit lucky. But hey, anything can happen. With that, thank you guys for listening or watching. I recommend that you watch on YouTube if you're on Anchor or Spotify, because I'm showing the lineup and the salaries. With that, like and subscribe, and follow the social.